Welcome to Basketball U. If you're new to Basketball U, make sure you slam dunk that subscribe button. And just to make sure you don't miss a thing, make sure you tap that notification bell right after you hit that subscribe button. Yes, we are back at it again. Welcome to Basketball U. Today we're going to break down basically what you run on every single day when you play the game of basketball, and that's the court. Now the outlines and everything seems pretty simple, but for the average person who doesn't know anything about basketball, it's important to explain things in detail. And even for younger children or people playing basketball for the first time need to know exactly what the terminology of every portion of the court is called. Because it's going to help in the long run when you're running down the court and you need to be in a certain area when your coach is yelling at you to get in a spot that he or she has never reviewed with you. But before we do that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Remember, we will be posting pretty much every other day, so be looking for content and make sure you follow us on our Twitter and IG. So just to give you a brief overview of everything, we will basically be talking about just everything outside and inside the lines and give you an explanation that you can remember and understand. Knowing the terminology on the court is vital so that it limits confusion between players and coaches. We will be breaking down the lines on the court and try to give you a mental image as well as a visual one here on the channel. We will try to give it to you simple as possible so we can get started playing basketball. So here's a quick rundown of lower level measurements on courts, because every court doesn't have the same size when playing at lower levels, such as middle school, high school, or even college. To give you a brief description of the high school basketball court layout, basically the court dimensions vary in overall length and width in many areas of the country. Older high school gymnasiums have smaller overall size and layout than professional regulation courts. Many of these same gyms have different backboard designs and measurements. Even though college and high school courts may differ on overall size, the interior markings for the foul line, the key, and the backboard and rim are the same. So here's some measurements of the court size overall. The overall size of a high school basketball court is typically 84 feet long and 50 feet wide. Some junior high school courts will measure 74 feet long and 42 feet wide. For all courts, the foul line distance is 15 feet from the foul line to the front of the backboard. The foul line is 18 feet, 10 inches from the baseline. The key, sometimes called the lane, is 12 feet wide. Regulation courts have the backboard extending out 4 feet over the baseline into the key. A 6-foot arc half circle extends from the foul line away from the basket to complete the key. Now as for the 3-point arc, it's 19 feet 9 inches with a straight line extending out 5 feet 3 inches, 63 inches from the baseline. The regulation distance from the ground to the top of the rim is 10 feet for all levels of play. Regulation backboards are 6 feet wide, that's 72 inches, by 42 inches tall. All basketball rims are 18 inches in diameter. The inner circle on the backboard is 24 inches wide, by 18 inches tall. All line markings on the floor are 2 inches wide and can vary in color. So when we think about lines and the dimensions of the court, it is a mirror image of each other. The professional NBA court is 94 feet long, 50 feet wide. First, you got the sidelines. The sidelines, or the boundary lines running alongside the length of the court, are determined by the full length of the court, which run normally 50 feet wide along with the baseline. And in line, it establishes the size of the playing area. Now the baseline or the end line runs from the sideline behind the backboard at the ends of the court. They are located 4 feet behind the basket, and the term becomes interchangeable depending on which team has ball possession. The baseline is used for the offensive end of the court, and inline term is used for the backcourt or defensive end of the court. Now talking about the midcourt line, the midcourt line separates the court, which allows you to understand that you have crossed a boundary line. Once this boundary line is crossed, you can be a violation of 8 to 10 seconds if you were not to cross in that amount of time. There is a center circle for that mid-court line. It's 12 feet in diameter, and this is where usually the center toss takes place. Or another name to call it, jump ball. Now let's take it to half court. As I said earlier, the half court basically mirrors each other. So whatever is explained in this half court also goes for the same on the other half. Now let's get to the free throw and lane line. The lane lines are the boundaries running from the free throw line to the baseline, with the shape of the lane lines vary on different levels of the game. The lane lines also contain lane space markings used to align and separate the non-shooters. The first lane space on both sides of the basket are occupied by the opposing team from the free throw shooter. Non-shooters cannot step into the 3-second area until the ball leaves the free throw shooter's hand. Speaking of the free throw shooter and the free throw line, the free throw line is the hub of the action, and each half court has this rectangle that is 12 feet wide, 16 feet at the men's pro level. The length that is measured from the basket to the free throw line is 15 feet at all levels, and any offensive player may not stand inside the lane for more than 3 seconds unless one of their teammates or the player themselves is shooting the ball. There's no time to really get in the rules right now. I have a whole different video for that, but that is something important that you need to know when speaking about the free throw lane or the key area. These other lines that are outside of the key or the free throw lane, the remaining players line up alongside the free throw line and cannot interfere with the shot. They line up in order on either side of that line, and the order of it is defense, offense, defense, offense. If a player opts out to take a spot, say for example, the second offensive spot, then the player from the opposing team is permitted to step into that spot. Now let's talk about areas on the court, because it might be a little confusing to give you an overview, and I understand where some little detailed areas, so let's get into it. So first, we just got done talking about which is the lane line, and that lane line is also a big square, which is called a 3-second area, or we call it the key. The area below the free throw line is sometimes even called the paint as well, in most gyms, because it's painted a different color than the floor as a whole. If any offensive player remains in that area for more than 3 seconds, it's considered a violation and the other team gets the ball. In the professional level, not only offensively do you get caught for 3 seconds, but defensively as well, as it is an unfair advantage to sit players in the key without actually guarding someone. But again, we'll talk about that in another video. These little squares right here that differentiate from the lines on the outside of the main line, we refer to this as the block. The block is a buffer area painted on the landline, separating offense of a defensive player during a free throw attempt. Additionally, it is a very strategic area during the game. Any offensive or defensive establishing a position on the block gains a definite advantage. Now, we've already discussed at the free throw line, but there's areas on the corner of the line called the elbow. The elbow is the area of the court where the free throw line meets the lane lines like the block. Now this one gets a little tricky, so this area right here is referred to as a free throw line extended. This imaginary line represents the extension of the free throw line across the width of the court. Most coaches use this terminology to establish defensive rules with the boys above the free throw line. A certain rule will apply when the ball is below the free throw line. There will be a different rule that applies in the scheme of what a coach has as well. It is also used as a reference for offensive player alignment. Top of the key or top of the circle is the area straight out of the basket, just outside the free throw line. And it's also a favorite spot from which many players like to shoot. The wing area is located on the side of the court near the free throw line. Now everyone's favorite part of the game, well, I should say, other than scoring, is shooting the 3-point shot. The 3-point arc is another important feature on the court. The arc extended around the basket in the near semicircle, and its distance from the basket is different according to the level of play, even at one level. The NBA has changed the 3-point distance on 2 different occasions since first adapting the 3-point line. We now interrupt this program for a quick lesson in history. Can you believe when basketball started, they only scored 2 points no matter where you shot it on the floor? You could have went to the moon and shot it from there. It will still be 2 points. But let's give credit to the guy who invented the 3-point line. His name was Eddie Rios Mulatto. It was created in the professional league in 1961. And that's where the arc was born. The 3-point shot was created so we give the smaller player a chance to score and open up defense. just to make the game more enjoyable for fans. The three-point line didn't enter the league until the season of 1979 to 1980. This was the year that two good players in the history of basketball came in and basically wanted more advantage in the other in revolutionizing the three-point shot. Now, most people would say that Stephen Curry was the one who revolutionized the game with his three-point shooting ability, but let's give the real credit to the person who hit the very first three-point shot, and that was none other than Boston Celtics' Chris Ford. And then another guy that you probably never heard about is Kevin Greavy. He played for the Washington Bullets. He also made a three in his game, but it was after Chris Ford. But I figured I would just give him a little bit of credit as well, since he hit a three-pointer that day as well. As we continue on, although the NBA included the three-point line during that season, the NCAA didn't universally implement the three-point line until 1986. Then came high school, then followed NCAA, which was in 1987. So the measurement of the three-point arc when it was first adopted into the NBA during the 1979 and 1980 season, it was 23 feet and 9 inches from the basket and 22 feet in those corner spaces. It was then until the 1994-95 season all the way through 97, the three-point line was moved closer to 22 feet from the basket. And then it was just the same all the way around. They did this to try to combat lower scoring games. However, it didn't work as expected. So the three-point line moved back to its original distance in the 1997-98 season. And that distance has remained ever since. And so the correct distance, again, is 23 feet, 9 inches away from the basket. However, there has been an integration of foreign players coming over to the NBA. Their three-point line was much different length from the basket, with it being 20 feet and 6 inches away, while college distance was 19 feet and 9 inches from the basket. Oh, one last little detail that I almost forgot to mention is the charge circle. The charge circle is a half circle that is right directly under the rim, a very short distance from the dotted line to that actual charge line. And that line is to help referees out when a player is driving to the basket and someone steps in front of that line, taking a hit from a player and falling back, that in hopes of getting a foul call from the offensive player. But don't get too worried about all those details. I'll talk about it in another video. But that line is also important because it's considered a game changer. Now, before we conclude, we will talk about basically the scoring. Anything within the three-point arc is a two-point basket, whether it's done late, whether it's a shot from the free throw area, the elbow area, or even the open space areas in between both lines. The only time a basket is not worth 2 points is when a player is fouled inside at the free throw line, shooting one shot at a time, which counts for 1 point for each shot. Plus, what we talked about a little earlier is that huge arc, along with everything behind it. That's worth 3 points. And there you have it. I have given you basic blueprint of what a basketball court is and all the dimensions presented to you in detail. Now, there are other specifics, but the main details you needed to know how to play the game are right there in front of you. In case you missed out on the detail or I kind of went over too fast, feel free to rewind. Also, we give you a little small detail on the three-point line and some players who made that three-point line a thing, and some details on the rules. But that was presented to you earlier than expected, but those details will be broken down a little more later in another video. This is Basketball U. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, follow all of our social medias right there in the description to keep yourself up to date, as this channel will have a lot of basketball, a lot of players, and a lot of training and more information on how to play the game of basketball. Remember, someone's always working. Are you?